One track, two cars and a stopwatch. It's an old versus new fifth gear shootout with one simple question to answer. What's quickest? The world of rallying has given us some very special road cars, turning humble hatchbacks into four-wheel drive hooligans with devastating performance. Toyota have been away from this market for some time, their last decent effort being this, the 90s WRC legend, the sleeker GT4 ST205. Now they're back with the Yaris. Yes, a Yaris, but looks can be deceptive because the only thing this shares with your nan's car is the headlights, taillights and the aerial. This is the new GR Yaris, 30 grand's worth of homologation spec motor. It's a bespoke machine and on paper it's running pretty close to that Sega Rally Hero. But which is fastest round the track? First up, it's a sleeker.
This car was made famous really by Toyota getting up to no good and effectively cheating in the World Rally Championship by having a very clever turbo air restrictor which basically gave them another 50 horsepower. That was the year which Colin McRae won the WRC for Subaru. You know what, it's 20 odd years old this. It's pretty good. Quite a lot of steering you need to put in, but once the car's set, it's wow. I'll tell you what also this car was famous for. Do you remember Sega Rally? Well, it was the car. Let's have a look and see what lap time we can do. This is more like it. Now this ST205 featured a very complicated front suspension system called a super strut, and it was lots of different multi-links, all designed to give it just a little bit more control. And I must say, the steering is very good.
And the old Rally Hero crosses the line in 1 minute 25.2.
That'll do. It's an old car, we need to look after it, don't we?
Let's see if the hot newcomer can beat that.
Now this Yaris GR is a proper homologation special. Now performance-wise, the specs are impressive. 5.5 seconds to 60, it's got best part of 260 horsepower and a little tiny 3-cylinder engine. Now this is the most powerful production 3-cylinder engine in the world. Now this got this circuit pack, which is basically some really good goodies. It's got 18-inch BBS forged alloys. It's got torsion diffs front and rear. It's best part 3.5 grand's worth, but it's sensational to drive. You know what we're doing? Nearly 130 miles an hour now. And it's just epically quick. And there's 3 driving modes: normal, sport, and then track. And they basically change the torque bias front to rear. So normal, you've got 60% on the front, 40 on the rear. Then your sport, it's the other way around. It's 30% on the front, 70 on the rear. And then on the track, it's a 50-50 split. It's got such brilliant poise, grip, changes direction brilliantly well. God, it's good. Should we do a lap time?
At the first checkpoint, the Yaris is nearly 2.5 seconds ahead.
Come on, baby! The sun's in the way there, can't quite see where I'm going. Do you know what? The front end is really sharp and pointy.
At the second checkpoint, the gap is now 4.5 seconds.
Come on, baby! Oh, I reckon we might be on for a low 17. 1 minute 17, something like that.
And I was right. The Yaris crosses the line in 1 minute 17.72. That's a whopping 7 seconds faster than the old Celica. So while the Celica is still a legend, the sheer grip and control of the GR has battered it on track. This little Yaris is without doubt my new favourite hot hatch. This time we're getting down and dirty with two Japanese rally-inspired beasts. The Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution 7, or Evo 7 as it's better known, and the Toyota Yaris GR. The FQ300 was the fastest version of the Evo 7 when it was launched in 2002. In fact, when Fifth Gear put it on track against another highly rated rally-bred machine, the Subaru Impreza WRX, it was a full 2 seconds quicker. Fast forward 2 decades, and we've got Toyota's take on a rally car for the road. Although, this is not my first encounter with the Yaris GR, because I first drove it 2 years ago.
Come on, baby!
On that day, it blew a top-spec Toyota Celica firmly into the weeds and left me with this conclusion. This little Yaris is without doubt my new favourite hot hatch. But I've got a feeling the Mitsubishi will give the Toyota something a bit tougher to chew on. Let's start by rolling back the years.
If you're a rally fan of a certain age, you'll remember that in the late 90s, it was dominated by the Evo. In fact, a pal of mine, the great Tommy Mackinnon, won 4 WRC titles on the bounce, all in Evos. Man, it's just mega! Now, it's so successful that Mitsubishi produced 10 versions from 1992 and eventually hung up their hats in 2016.
And it's not hard to see why these cars were so popular.
You know, sensible money got you a practical 4-door saloon that could see off pretty much anything on the roads.
Particularly if you had an FQ300.
Yeah, the 2-litre turbocharged engine produced nearly 310 horsepower in a body shell that weighed 1,360 kilos. And by today's standards, and that's light.
The result is a 0 to 62 time of 5.1 seconds and a top speed of 157 miles an hour. But as the Evo is first and foremost a rally car, the emphasis is not so much on traffic light stats, but being sure-footed.
Maximising grip on loose or slippery surfaces is all about directing power to the wheels which can best use it. Hence why this is 4-wheel drive.
But it goes much further than that.
Now, also had an active centre diff which could distribute the power front or back depending on what was needed. And there's also a trick bit of kit in the rear axle which is active yaw control, where it could actually individually put more power to one wheel to help the car turn.
And then there's another diff on the front axle to make sure the left or right wheel doesn't spin unnecessarily.
All clever stuff. Now, you know, even on tarmac, you can feel these systems, like there. You can feel it transfer power from the front to the rear of the car. You know, on really slippery surfaces, you'd really notice it.
And there's plenty of stopping power thanks to Brembo brakes all round.
Now, back in the day when this car was new, you know, the brakes were amazing. Obviously, this one's had a bit of work, and the brakes are a bit noisy, quite a lot of brake judder, probably because they're a bit warped.
The FQ300 also benefited from a freer flowing air filter and revised exhaust to help the engine breathe better. This was supposed to reduce turbo lag, but remember, we are talking about a 20-year-old car.
Now these cars had pretty big turbos, and yeah, I mean there is lag, definitely, nothing like a modern turbo. But you know what? It's quite fun because then you end up anticipating and getting on the power a bit earlier than you normally would, waiting for the boost to build. Makes it fun to drive, actually. These cars, you know, the Evo, the Subaru, back in the day, but particularly this, breathtaking in terms of the way they handled, the way they drove. I mean, really pointy front ends, great grip, brilliant balance, but also they just make you feel alive. You know, they're quick, they move around a bit. They're just epic.
Well, they are epic until the brakes fail.
Whoa, yeah. Whoa.
It turns out the brake fluid had boiled in all the excitement. However, after a brief cool-off, normal service was restored and I set off for a fast lap.
Get on the gas, right. Power. Come on, JP, flat over crest. Right, start the watch. Do you know what? I do feel like Tommy Mackinnon. God, it's quick. Right, here we go, coming to the line. Stop the watch.
The Evo 7 crosses the line in 48.58 seconds. Now, did any of the eagle-eyed amongst you spot anything unusual about this car's number plate?
Now, would you believe this is exactly the same car that we drove 20 years ago?
Next, the Yaris.
Like the Evo did 20 years ago, the Yaris GR is being campaigned in the World Rally Championship, but let's not kid ourselves. You know, those cars are a million miles away from the Yaris you can get at the Toyota dealership.
So this GR comes with all the safety tech, soundproofing and luxury fitments we've come to expect from modern-day production cars. And that means, well, it's quite hefty.
Now, I remarked earlier that the Evo was pretty light at 1360 kilos. And to put that into context, this Yaris is half a metre shorter, and yet it's only 50 kilograms lighter. So this is you know, for its size, a heavy little car.
And although the GR is still the most powerful three-cylinder car you can buy, with 260 horsepower at its disposal, it's still giving away 50 horses to the Mitsubishi.
Now, crunch the numbers basically means that this Yaris has got a lower power-to-weight ratio than the Evo.
And why is this stat so important?
Because it's the ultimate comparison figure when comparing two cars. You know, if this car had twice the power, but also twice the weight, it wouldn't be any quicker. In fact, it'd be slower because mass doesn't want to slow down and doesn't want to change direction.
So perhaps it's no surprise that the Yaris is nearly half a second slower to 62 than the Evo, although the Toyota will benefit from the optional circuit pack that's been fitted.
This pack doesn't add any power, but it does add torsion differentials front and rear and a stiffer setup on the suspension, which ultimately is going to mean it's going to corner better and it's going to have better traction.
It also adds £3.5 grand to the price tag, bringing the GR to £35,000. Mind you, that's only £4,000 more than the Evo 7 cost back in 2002.
Let's get set up for a hot lap. Start the watch. phenomenal grip.
By the first checkpoint, the Yaris is half a second ahead.
Yeah, in this track mode, it's 50-50 torque split. It's brilliant. The front's really tight, holds the line. And this is going to blow apart the Evo, I reckon.
By the second checkpoint, that lead has stretched to 3/4 of a second.
The front tucks in. Now I can feel the rear moving a little bit. Wow. It's a really beautiful balance. Proper thing. Stop the watch.
The Yaris crosses the line in 47.15 seconds, which is 1.4 seconds faster than the Evo. So the new car wins by a good margin around this short Landau circuit. The Evo is still a very quick car and huge fun to drive, but it simply can't compete with the little Toyota's astonishing balance, mega brakes and super glue grip.
I mean, I loved it when I drove it a couple of years ago. Still love it.